Hello everyone and welcome. So it's end of wipe, and if you're anything like me, you probably have a bunch of flares in your stash just collecting dust. And I'm not really big on the flares, haven't used them that many times, not really sure what you can get from them. I haven't really seen any clips of people getting good stuff out of them. So I figured why not shoot off all of them, not at the same time, and see what we can get from them if they're even worth keeping this long. So yeah, in today's video we'll be doing that. I decided to pick Lighthouse because it has two main extracts that are pretty easy to get to and always open, and one of them being Southern Road is pretty secluded, and the other one being Path to Shoreline. Kind of the same thing, still a bit risky though, but end of the day, pretty easy to get out of and it's always available. So yeah, let's get to it, shoot them off, see how much stuff we can get from it, and try and calculate like an average value you can get from them, and then you can decide if you want to keep them or not. On the first one I shot off, I ended up getting an airdrop medical crate. Well, just basically a medical variant of this flare crate supply drop thing. And the really only interesting items I got from it was a SFMP bag and a bottle of whiskey. So once I got out, I just sold everything for the best price I could get. That includes like flea market prices and trader prices. And although the majority of the items sold for a good price to traders, they ended up selling for a bit more on the flea. But the TLDR is I ended up getting around 400,000 rubles for this stuff, which is not too bad, but not too great either. So I got another flare and I went in again. On the second flare, I got another airdrop medical crate. But looking at the loot, to be quite honest, it's more like an airdrop food crate. And the only real good items I ended up getting was the Grizzly medical kit and the SJ6. So after I got out, I just sold all the stuff again for the best price I could get, and after all of that was sold, there were still some things on the flea market that I hadn't sold yet, so yeah, we're still waiting for those rubles to come in. But at this point, we're well over a million, around 1.4 million rubles, I believe. So not looking too bad, 700,000 rubles per crate so far that we've made. On the third flare, I ended up getting the spawn that was closer to Southern Road, so I just ran over there, got as close to the extract as I was comfortable doing, because I wasn't really sure if flare could fail, but you never know. So, shot off the flare and ended up landing on the mountain. And on this occasion, it actually said airdrop supply crate. And in this one, I mostly got a bunch of tick spawns. Some of them were quite valuable, some of them not so much, and some of them were actually quest items that I did need. But in the end of the day, I yoinked everything except for one of the VKBO bags because I really didn't have space for it. So I'll just add that one onto the calculation later, as well as the items that I had to hand in for the quest. For the sake of staying a little bit accurate, you know. Oh, and FYI, this is a sniper scav spot. Not sure if this scav will ever be useful where he's standing, but anyways, just so you know. After I got out, I sold everything again, and at the end of this sale, we ended up with a total of around 1.8 million rubles, meaning the average has dropped a little bit, but still around 600,000 rubles, and there was also still quite a few items that had not yet been sold on the flea market. On the fourth one, I actually spawned way over at Sniper Mountain, but I just ran to Southern Road again. Shot off the flare, and of course I landed on the mountain again. But this time it was a common supply one, which meant it had a bunch of armors and a bunch of different food items and healing items, with the only real nice things in it being the Aisa and the Banshee armor. Again, I didn't have much space, so I had to leave behind a VKBO bag, which again I'll just add to the calculation later. But to be quite honest, it's like worth 5,000 rubles maybe, so won't make much of a difference really. Ended up extracting, selling everything, and after everything was sold, as well as some other monies that I got from Ragman from items that I'd previously listed that had now been sold, ended up with a total of 2.8 million rubles about, and the average going up again back to 700,000 rubles. On the fifth one, I ended up getting the bad spawn again, but after making it all the way to Southern Road and shooting off the flare and heading up all the way on the mountain, it ended up being just a regular supply crate with nothing great in it at all. Once I got everything and extracted, I started selling off all the stuff, getting some of the money that was sold while I was doing this raid, and ended up with a new total of 3.4 million rubles, with the new average now sitting at around 680,000 rubles. On the seventh time, I spawned inside the village and headed to the usual spot where I shot the flare earlier, but on the way there, I actually got shot at by a few AIPMCs, so I just shot off the flare, took care of them, and then looted the crop. On this occasion, I ended up getting a weapons supply crate. Nothing too great in it, so I just extracted once I was done, sold everything off. Ended up with a new total of 3.9 million rubles, meaning the average dropped as well a bit to 650,000 rubles. But there was still a bunch of stuff on the flea that hadn't sold yet, and I actually had used up all of my offers on the flea, so I still had some items that weren't even listed yet. And while I waited for all of that to sell, I went in for the 7th time and I spawned close to Southern Road again, ran to the extract, called in the flare, and then went up the mountain. While I was up on the mountain, I practiced some of my long range snipes and actually got a 1000-meter kill on one of the rogues. 1 bullet, by the way, first shot, I promise. And then I checked the crate and it was just a common loot supply crate. Had a bunch of bags, a few rigs and some headsets in, but the most notable item was the lab's armband. After I got everything in, I extracted and started selling everything off. But I couldn't list everything on the market as I'd used up all of my available offer slots, I guess. And so there was a lot of items that I still had not sold or had not sold from the previous raid. So at the time, before going in for the 8th time, I ended up with a total of 4.1 million rubles, and the new average being around 585,000 rubles. On the 8th time, I went in again and actually used the last normal flare. And so when I got to Southern Road Extract, I shot it off, went up the mountain again, expecting the drop to be there, but it ended up landing right in front of the extract. This might be because I looked away from the extract this time and the flare kind of went backwards a bit. Either way though, I ended back down and it was a weapon supply crate. Once I looted everything, I extracted and started selling everything off again. I sold as much as I could to all of the traders, trying to get the best price for them, as well as trying to really choose a good price on the flea so I can actually sell the items, but I still ended up with a bunch of items I couldn't sell, meaning that the total was around 4.4 million rubles and the average around 550,000 rubles. On the 9th and final time I went in again, but this time I actually used my flare pistol, which had a red cartridge, and so I shot that off and kind of waited for it to land again near the extract, but it never did. It actually went up to the mountain again, of course. Went up there and looted it, and it was just another medical supply crate. Or should I say a food crate. And after I got everything, I just extracted and started selling everything off again. When I got out, I collected a bunch of money from the flea market that I got during the raid and started selling everything off again. Again, I tried to sell them for the best price possible, so some of the stuff went to traders and others went on the flea, but there was still a bunch of stuff that was not sold. And I knew it would take quite a while for everything to actually sell, so after this I just hopped off and then came back in the next day. Next, I loaded up again. There was a few things that I'd actually sold overnight, and I actually was able to list a few more things and sell some other things to traders, even though the value might be slightly lower than I've gotten from the flea market. But I still do not have enough slots on the flea market to actually sell everything, so I played a few raids and came back in again and sold off the last few things. So that ended up being 6.9 million rubles in total, over 9 flares, and that means the average was around 655,000 rubles. But since I sold some stuff on the flea market, honestly, I would say safer would be around 500,000 rubles on average per flare. Of course, I think there is a chance you might get a LEDX or a GPU in one of these drops, but I'm not 100% sure, so yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Overall though, if you look at how much a flare actually sells for and how much you can get from the flare, it's definitely worth it to keep it or just to shoot it off a bit later. But that can't be said for PvP, because I know if you shoot that thing off, everyone's going to come rushing, especially player scavs. Because player scavs also need to eat, right? But that aside, I actually would say there was a lot of items I got that were quest items, especially in the beginning of wipe. So if you do find one early wipe and you can shoot it off and loot it, you might end up getting a bunch of good gear you can use or just a bunch of quest items. And if not that, you'll probably get a lot of items that can be used for your hideout upgrades. But ultimately, the choice is up to you. Thanks again for watching if you made it this far into the video. If you did like this video, please leave a like. And if you didn't like this video as much, maybe check out some of the other videos on my channel. They might appeal to you a bit more. Most of them are guides. So if they do, subscribe. I really appreciate that. We're only a few subs away from reaching the first partner goal, which is 500 subs. And if you know anyone else who's been wondering about this or needs some help with some other keys or quests, make sure to share channel or some of the videos with them. I'd really appreciate that too. As well, thanks to everyone that has subbed, has liked the videos, has watched them, and has shared. I see there's a lot of people sharing. I really do appreciate that. That really gets videos going. And if you recently subbed, welcome. Other than that, guys, hope you guys look forward to the wipe. It's gonna be, what, in a day from now, so see you guys out there. Have a good one.